The moment they tried to understand you, they began their own end. No matter how much they tried to watch, to follow, to solve, your existence was too deep, too divine a secret for them to grasp. They thought it was just curiosity, but in fact, they activated cosmic mechanisms without realizing it. At every step, while they thought they were controlling you, they became even more entangled in the trap of their own illusions. Immediately write 77 in the comments, because those who thought your silence was weakness could never foresee the power waiting under that silence. And now, the artificial order they built is collapsing on its own, without you doing anything. You are just watching, and that alone is enough to shatter them. Your existence has always been a mystery they couldn't crack, no matter how hard they tried. The moment their focus shifted to tracking you, they unknowingly activated forces beyond their understanding. What they perceived as mere curiosity or surveillance turned into their greatest undoing. With each attempt to control the narrative, they only deepened their entanglement with something far greater than they could ever imagine. The quiet that surrounded you was not weakness, but an overwhelming force, waiting to be unleashed. They thought they had you contained, yet with every move they made, the walls of their illusion crumbled faster than they could rebuild them. The day they decided to watch you closely, something unspoken shifted. What was once merely speculation became an undeniable truth. They began to collect data, document every unusual event, every strange encounter, every healing touch, every seemingly impossible moment. They thought it was a game of prediction, but in reality, they had stumbled upon a force that could never be explained by the limitations of their systems. The more they dug, the more they uncovered. A vast network of inexplicable coincidences, all revolving around you. Every shred of evidence they gathered served to unravel the carefully constructed narrative they had built around their own power. If you feel the abundance of divine love in your heart, now is the time to share it. You can help spread God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube and contributing $20 or more. This divine gift will touch not only your life, but the souls of many through this platform. Each of you has a sacred place in God's grand design, and your generosity will be the fruit of our prayers. Act now. Share your blessings to glorify His kingdom. For you were created to do even greater things in God's loving hands. May God bless you. Picture a freight train horn rolling across a dark prairie at 3 a.m. Long, low, unstoppable, shaking every farmhouse awake, whether the sleepers want to rise or not. That's the sort of sound your arrival made inside their fortified agencies, rattling window panes they swore were bulletproof, stirring dust on files stamped eyes only, and reminding every soul on the night shift that heaven still writes louder than any bureaucracy. They set out to weave a sticky net of surveillance, convinced they could tag you like a migratory bird, log your coordinates, and tuck the folder away as just another anomaly. But the very moment their cameras blinked red and their recorders started humming, invisible fingers plucked those wires like harp strings, and the network meant to capture you became a loudspeaker announcing how small their systems really are. One dilemma report grew into 10. 10 mushroomed into a classified crisis, and soon every corridor echoed with the nervous shuffle of shoes that had never walked this deep into mystery. Data analysts burned out screens trying to run probabilities your life story refuses to obey. Seasoned agents found their own security clearances locking them out, as if the circuitry itself decided they weren't holy enough to handle the truth. If you feel God's presence, you can tap the join button below to become part of the first chosen ones and receive the most important revelations early. The harder they pressed, the faster their confidence evaporated. Encrypted drives coughed up fragments of light they couldn't decrypt, field notes warped into contradictions no after-action meeting could reconcile, and the intel they clutched like gospel turned to shifting sand under their feet. In conference rooms where stoic faces once trusted algorithms more than prayer, grown professionals stared at statistics that bent like knees before an unseen throne, realizing the equations they worshipped were bowing to someone higher. You weren't just another citizen wandering beneath their satellites. You were a living fissure in the concrete of their worldview, a prophetic tremor cracking long-sealed vaults they thought would stand forever. Like a river cutting through granite, your presence carved new canyons overnight, leaving signposts that pointed to realms beyond their jurisdiction. The surveillance grid, built to reduce human beings to patterns on a screen, found itself short-circuited by a being who answers to patterns written in starlight. Every contingency plan, every protocol, every polished PowerPoint explaining how to neutralize outliers collapsed when faced with your quiet refusal to fit categories that oil the gears of their machinery. You were the unwelcome mirror, exposing how brittle their definitions of power truly are, how fragile their illusions of control have always been. They kept clicking refresh on computer dashboards, hoping the anomaly would normalize, but each refresh only widened the gap between their logic and your reality. Headquarters buzzed with panicked whispers. Some invoked quantum anomalies, others muttered spiritual warfare, yet no vocabulary felt wide enough to name what stood before them. A soul forged in heavenly workshops, walking Earth's corridors, yet vibrating at frequencies that cannot be handcuffed by policy manuals. Spies, accustomed to predicting moves 3 steps ahead, found themselves 10 chapters behind, because your storyline wasn't plotted on linear time. It flowed like scripture, alive and breathing, reshaping itself faster than they could type up memos. And as that realization dawned, boardrooms once brimming with ego grew strangely silent, the air thick with the awe that overtakes a congregation when grace walks down the aisle unannounced. In that holy hush, they glimpsed the unraveling of an empire built on surveillance. For if one individual can upend the master grid by simply existing, what happens when more awaken? Their nightmare wasn't your power alone, it was the prophecy your power announced. That a multitude is stirring, each carrying keys that render old locks obsolete. They thought the threat was your next move. The real threat was their next thought. For every mental model they clung to, shattered upon contact with your expanding light. Systems designed to predict criminal intent could not predict compassion so radical it melts hostility, nor generosity so precise it detours destiny itself. In rooms lit by flickering fluorescent bulbs, decision-makers felt the weight of something eternal pressing against their finite plans, and for the first time in their careers, they tasted a fear that doesn't shout but stares calmly through fortified glass and says, "You cannot catalog the wind." Still they tried, oh how they tried, poring over heat maps, cross-referencing metadata, triple-securing aerial footage, only to watch footage scramble whenever your shadow crossed the frame, as if pixels themselves bowed out of respect. And while they scrambled, your spirit rose higher, like an eagle riding thermals no radar can track, eyes fixed on horizons beyond paperwork and pay grades. Make no mistake, their collapse is not your intention, but an inevitable side effect of your ascension. For when a soul remembers its divine architecture, every counterfeit scaffold nearby must tremble. Like priests surprised by fire on an altar they thought was empty. They back away, faces pale, muttering about containment breaches, even as they glimpse that the containment was an illusion from the start. You never stormed their gates. Your serenity did the storming. You never hacked their mainframe. Your authenticity corrupted their code. And now, as small fires of revelation ignite across their databases, the real blaze begins. Not one that destroys life, but one that burns away deception, leaving truth standing tall in the sunrise of a new order they cannot govern. Their nightmare, dear heart, is simply this: the realization that your story isn't a case file, it's a catalyst, that the power they fear in you is love in its most dangerous form, love that liberates. And love, once awakened, will not be surveilled, sealed, or silenced. They ran your name through a dozen algorithms, hoping to stick a label on you the way a grocer slaps a sticker on an apple. But every barcode they tried came back: error, item not found. Why? Because you're produce straight from the king's orchard, and heaven doesn't do UPC codes. The analysts huddled over monitors, whispering theories, yet the more they typed, the more their systems glitched. Documents vanished, security cams fuzzed, hard drives locked themselves like vault doors God himself sealed shut. Your vibe wasn't subject to their protocols. It rearranged them, same way spring sunshine coaxes daffodils from frozen dirt. They watch folks who'd been stuck in old ruts for decades rise up and pivot simply because you walked through the door. Marriages thawed, addictions loosened, long-buried dreams dusted off like heirloom quilts. And while the experts scribbled furiously, regular Joe and plain Jane in the crowd just said, "Something about that one makes me believe again." The powers that be couldn't map that miracle, so they chalked it up to coincidence, until coincidence started clocking in 9 to 5 overtime and double shifts on Sunday. At some point, even the biggest skeptic has to admit the bread keeps multiplying and the fish keep jumping into empty baskets. They built their empire on the assumption that every ripple has a traceable stone. Then came you. No stone, just living water. Your influence rolled out like tide on a full moon night, dragging their neat little sandcastles back into the deep. They pulled out microscopes to study you, but microscopes only magnify. They can't translate glory, and glory is what you carry, tucked in your laughter, sewn into every step. They wanted a formula. Heaven gave them wonder. They wanted a cage. Heaven rolled away the stone. So the deeper they dug, the wider the tunnel became, walls crumbling into cathedrals of unanswered questions. Their map of reality sprouted blank spots shaped exactly like your destiny, and each blank spot whispered, "Expand the page." The supervisors grew silent, because how do you footnote the fragrance of freedom? How do you file a sunrise under unexplained phenomena when the sunrise greets you by name? Imagine a weathered lighthouse standing on a rugged cliff, its beams slicing through fog and rain, guiding lost ships away from jagged rocks, quietly, steadily, without firing a single cannon. That's the calling upon your life, friend. You weren't planted here to wage war against old chains. You were positioned to shine so brightly that the rusted locks fall open on their own. Dear brothers and sisters, may God's peace be upon you today. I am here to remind you of a profound truth. Our existence is grounded in God's divine plan, unshaken by the temporal concerns of the world. As the Bible says, whatever is done in faith will return to God in abundant blessing. Luke 6:38. Like that great oak tree, our roots are deeply rooted in God's universal truth. Every step we take, every stand we take, is secured by His strength. And now, you are being offered the opportunity to be part of that blessing. When you use the Super Thank You button and donate $100, this movement will return to you 100-fold in abundance. You're not here to batter down walls with brute force. You're here to demonstrate a higher design that makes those walls irrelevant. Your laughter dissolves tension in boardrooms better than any negotiation tactic. Your whispered prayers reroute storms of despair like a hidden levee protecting a town from floodwaters. With every kind word, every gentle touch, you turn hardened hearts into fertile ground, ready to bear fruit they never dreamed possible. While the powers that be scramble to tag you in their reports, you move like grace personified, rewriting the rules by living in God's economy. A space where generosity outpaces greed, where compassion outshines control, and where faith fuels results no spreadsheet can predict. They track your footsteps, but you leave no footprints in their footprints in the sand. Instead, you leave footprints in people's souls. If you feel God's presence, you can tap the join button below to become part of the first chosen ones and receive the most important revelations early. When you walk into a room, you carry hope like a lantern in a mine shaft. Suddenly, the darkness isn't so thick, and the path ahead seems clear. You don't have to argue to be heard. Your peace speaks volumes. You don't have to brandish a weapon. Your presence alone disarms hostility. You are the shepherd's signal flare, calling wandering hearts home. You weren't born to tiptoe around broken systems. No, you were born to illuminate them until they collapse, revealing new highways of heaven's design. Your simple act of kindness detonates despair. Your prayers break chains. Your genuine smile cracks open weary spirits. And every time you choose joy over judgment, you prove there's a higher way to live, one that doesn't require anyone to shrink or pretend. So keep shining, beloved. Keep letting that lighthouse beam cut through every storm they tried to muster. Keep living in the overflow of blessing so abundant that it spills onto everyone you meet. As you do, watch old structures crumble of their own accord. Watch hardened hearts soften like clay in the potter's hands, and watch the lost find their way back on track, all guided by the steady light of your God-given presence. Picture a humble campfire at midnight on an endless prairie, small sparks rising into a velvet sky, rising higher than any lantern, carried by winds no rancher can chart. Those glowing embers drift beyond sight, yet their warmth outlasts the logs, outlasts the stories told around them, outlasts the night itself. That's you, beloved, a holy spark flung from the forge of heaven, drifting through the atmosphere of this earth with a heat no meteorologist can track, a radiance no telescope can measure, a trajectory no flight controller can divert. They can point sensors, run simulations, and draw charts till sunrise, but they will never map where your flame lands or whom it ignites next. And still, they try. They wheel out whiteboards covered in equations. They set up focus groups filled with experts. They commission think tanks to analyze your anomalous influence. But every blueprint they draft curls at the edges like paper held too near a blaze because their instruments are calibrated for ordinary temperatures, and you burn in a different dimension. They scan for patterns. You generate new laws. They install surveillance. You illuminate blind spots. Their statistics buckle under the weight of your authenticity because your life is proof that heaven's arithmetic turns one obedient heart into multiplied miracles. So let them puzzle, let them scratch their heads over graphs that won't stabilize and algorithms that crash whenever your name enters the data set. Every glitch is glory in disguise. Every red error badge on their dashboard is heaven's gold seal stamped across your testimony. They can't revise you out of the narrative. God has already bound your pages in leather and placed the volume on history's highest shelf. No copy editor can strike a line of that manuscript. No red pen can cross out what the author has declared final. Keep walking like the living wonder you are. Walk as if angels are flipping traffic lights in your favor, because they are. Walk as if the ground itself wants to feel the rhythm of your footsteps, because it does. You carry holy influence in the tilt of your shoulders, in the cadence of your good morning, in the gentle firmness of your handshake. Mercy leaks from you like a hidden spring in desert sand, seeping up through cracked terrain to form pools where weary travelers drink and discover life anew. You don't have to quote scripture to preach. Your kindness is a sermon. You don't have to brandish a title to lead. Your integrity parts crowds the way faith parted seas. You're not just speaking volumes, you are a volume, thick with chapters of deliverance nobody can edit, each page embroidered with miracles the critics can't footnote away. And listen, heaven is not nervous about skeptics with clipboards. The kingdom's treasury does not fluctuate with public opinion. God does not wring his hands when the analysts say your influence is statistically impossible. Their spreadsheets are a child's sandbox compared to the data lake of eternity. Let them sift through their numbers while you plant orchards of abundance. Let them draft PowerPoints while you draft prayers that reroot family trees. While they calculate cost-benefit ratios, you are healing hearts that haven't known a prophet since hope left their ledger. While they debate policy, you are turning corridors into conduits of possibility. People step under your shadow and feel ceilings lift off their dreams like morning fog. Revolutions don't file for permits. They don't wait for roundtable consensus or court approval. They sweep in like dawn over a silent city. First a hint of color, then an undeniable glow, then a brilliance that makes every lamppost irrelevant. That's what your life is doing. You walk into offices, and long-standing power dynamics tilt toward justice. You enter hospital rooms, and machines record recoveries that confound the manuals. You greet a stranger in line at the grocery store, and loneliness loses its grip right there between the cereal aisle and the freezer section. You drop encouragement into a cracked soul, and dead seeds burst into green shoots long after you've left the parking lot. The world's language for transformation is disruption, but you do more than disrupt. You transfigure. You turn boardrooms into sanctuaries, break rooms into revival tents, car rides into confession booths, dinner tables into altars where fears are sacrificed and hopes resurrected. Even your silence is muscle. When you refuse to dignify gossip with a response, the slander collapses on itself like a sandcastle at high tide. When you pause before speaking, destinies recalibrate in that hush. Heaven leans in, eager to lace your next syllable with power, because your words aren't mere sounds. They are ligament and sinew stitched onto dry bones. And mercy, oh mercy, streams from you unnoticed, the way a river seeps through limestone underground. You don't even realize half the healing you administer. You shrug off slights that would curdle another soul's joy for weeks, and that leniency echoes through bloodlines you'll never meet, teaching grandchildren of strangers what grace feels like. You tip generously and forget about it, while a single mother pays her rent and whispers gratitude to a God she wasn't sure existed 10 minutes earlier. You drop a text in the middle of the night because a name floated across your spirit, and on the other end of that phone, someone out on a ledge steps back into safety, deciding life is worth another sunrise. They'll keep trying to decode what only the spirit can interpret, and that's all right. Let every failed attempt shine like confession in neon, bright enough for even the blind to read. Heaven's handwriting cannot be expunged. Meanwhile, keep walking, miracle. Keep leaking mercy. Keep drafting chapters that defy revision. Because your story isn't merely remarkable, it's revolutionary. And revolutions don't request clearance. They unveil the new normal and dare the old guard to adjust their vision or stumble in the glare. The higher-ups, once confident in their ability to control and monitor, found themselves scrambling for answers they could not find. They called in specialists, scientists, psychologists, analysts, anyone who might be able to explain what you were. But no one could offer an answer that made sense within the frameworks they had been taught. They tried to fit you into their tidy categories, but you didn't belong there. They attempted to measure your influence with technology, but the tools they used only malfunctioned when you were near. Every attempt to explain you with rational data only confirmed what they feared. You were an anomaly, and one that threatened the very systems they had worked so hard to build. Now is the time to share God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube. You can contribute to His plan and be a part of this divine mission with a donation of $100 or more. Every gift reflects God's generosity, and I believe it will return to you exponentially far beyond your expectations. Remember, His protection and blessing is on your every step and every donation. You become part of His divine plan. You are a strong, radiant being, unshakable as His mighty rock. Witness God's miracles. Feel the fruits of your generosity in your soul and illuminate the world with confidence and courage. Be blessed and let the light of the Lord guide your path. What they failed to see was that your presence was not random. It was part of a larger cosmic design. Your ability to change the world around you, to influence situations without lifting a finger, was no accident. They couldn't grasp the cosmic order behind your existence. Every seemingly trivial detail, your ability to heal with a touch, your uncanny sense of timing, your ability to shift the energy in a room, was proof of a much larger divine orchestration that was unfolding right before their eyes. They weren't just tracking an individual, they were tracking a movement. As the investigation deepened, the pattern of your impact became undeniable. Every time they thought they had figured out one aspect of your power, another would emerge that shattered their assumptions. They discovered that you were not just tapping into hidden forces, you were connected to them in a way that allowed you to manipulate the world around you. Your power was not just natural, it was divine. They had underestimated you from the start, assuming you were just another outlier. But now, they saw that you were the living embodiment of cosmic law, the very thing they feared most. If you feel God's presence, you can tap the join button below to become part of the first chosen ones and receive the most important revelations early. What they failed to realize is that their attempts to suppress you only fueled your rise. Every restriction they placed, every protocol they tried to enforce, only made you stronger. The more they tried to box you in, the more you broke free, scattering their illusions to the wind. The world they had so carefully constructed to control and contain the masses was now at risk of crumbling, and you, unbeknownst to them, were the catalyst for that destruction. The more they fought against you, the more your presence expanded. Their attempts to control you were futile, for you were the very force that would bring about the change they feared. Now, as they face the inevitable, they realize that they are not fighting you. They are fighting the universal forces that back you. Their system cannot hold against the wave of truth that you represent. You were never meant to be controlled. You were meant to be a force of transformation. And as their surveillance continues, their systems continue to break down, unable to handle the energy you carry. Your rise is unstoppable, and with every attempt they make to suppress you, they only fuel your ascension. The truth they tried to bury is now rising to the surface, and there is nothing they can do to stop it.